Today I'm talking about a classroom full of pianos. You walk in, you look, piano lab. That's the conversation today. Hi, this is Ted Barsley with Alamo Piano Galleries. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and also take a chance to go in and shop our store at alamopianogalleries.com. And you'll find that a lot of the things that are discussed in videos here, the demonstration, the keyboards, the acoustic pianos, grand pianos, uprights, are available for sale there so you can shop. And also, if you have any questions or comments about this video or any other video, go ahead and leave them down there. And lately I've been really enjoying some of the comments regarding the tuning, and then also regarding, regarding the tuning and also viewer recommendations for future videos. I've been doing a number of those as well. Today I want to talk about piano labs. And before I do that, it's kind of interesting because I went back through YouTube on the internet and I just typed in piano labs and see what kind of videos came up. And one video's out there about piano labs, and it's called A Piece of Piano History. It's about a 2-year-old video, and it's on the Alamo Music Center channel, and it features my old video partner, Patrick Marr. He shot this video up in Michigan, and it's kind of interesting if you'd like to go back and look at it, because his video is a historic representation of a Wurlitzer piano using and above what they call the visualizer, and it actually is a display. And it's kind of interesting because it shows on a screen in front of a class. It's really large, and he plays in front of it, and whatever he plays shows up on the music staff, and then it also shows up on a keyboard. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because that was the very first piano lab, I think, in existence, was put together by Wurlitzer. And they used either the 200s or the 140s at that time. And the first time I ever encountered a piano lab in my life, I believe I was 11 or 12 years old. I was living in Florida. I went into a music dealership, and they sold piano very much just like our store, but at the back they had a large classroom, and they had all these Wurlitzer pianos lined up. They all had headphones. And I want to say there was about 6 of them. And there was one that was like at a T formation, obviously where the teacher would sit. And I never attended a class piano there, but I saw where they taught that at that store. And at one time, a lot of stores used to have little piano labs or classrooms set up like that. And the idea behind this was that you could teach 6 or 7 or 8, or you could teach a bunch of students at once, and a teacher could sit there and listen to each one individually through a control unit. And if they had to, they could say to them like, hey, they could hit a button and their voice would show up in my headphones that says, Ted, you're messing that up. Why don't you start that over again? And then if I talk to the teacher, they can hear me back. So there's a lot of one-on-one. The teacher goes around the room and listens. That's how piano labs work even to this day. I do believe in a different kind of piano lab, acoustic pianos, and everyone plays and everyone listens at the same time. And yeah, it's atrocious sounding, but guess what? People are looking at their neighbors if they know they're playing the wrong thing, and they cheat off their neighbor and they get it right. It's the drum circle mentality applied to piano class, and it is immediately effective because students are not always as polite as a teacher would be, especially if they're buddies and friends and you're learning together. However, I will say this about piano lab and class piano. Every person I've ever known that had to take an elective in college said, well, I took class piano because I always wanted to know something about piano. Most of those students come away with the ability to play a couple of chops, and I don't mean just like a melody. I mean they can actually play a part of a song because they learned it in the class piano at a piano lab. Part of this history that I want to mention involves the Baldwin company, because they used to make these pianos and we had a number of them here. However, about 20 years ago, we started a house cleaning project. At that time, it was a needed house cleaning project, and a number of these EP100s were sold, and the ones that were complete junk were trashed. And they are a Baldwin EP100. It is a piano that came in a console furniture style case, and you couldn't really quite tell if it was a spinet or a true console upright. However, it didn't matter. They didn't have a true piano action, and all the sound in it was 100% solid state electronics. They sounded like a cross between a Fender Rhodes and a Whirly. They had their own unique sound. What made this piano so successful when Baldwin came out with it is you could plug in headphones and everyone else in the house could do something while the person was practicing piano. These came out in the 1960s, and so did the Wurlitzer Piano Lab. Since then, there's been major changes in how piano labs work. And recently, within the past 2 or 3 months, I think we went and did an installation on a piano lab. And before I get into what the problems are and so on and so forth, I want to just discuss the concept of, if you do look up a piano lab on Google and you just go after basic information, the premise is this. They list a handful of things, and I kind of broke it down for more things that what truly makes up a piano lab. But they're going to tell you when you find out it's going to be 8, 16, 24, 32, or 48. It's very much like the recording thing. And part of that is because it involves a couple of things. You can have 8 students set up, 16, 32. A lot of them go like 12, 18, or 24 at some colleges and schools. But the bottom line is this. Every student has however many units, and I want to stick with 8 if you think in terms. You need keyboards. And what is a piano lab? Well, it depends who's going to be using it. If this is a piano lab you're setting up for children that are 6 or 8 years old or under 10 years old or 12, you can look at doing different kind of keyboards other than 88 weighted action keys, because you're not going to get into a whole lot of technique, and you're not going to get into a whole lot of muscle development. You're just basically at this point trying to encourage them along to continue playing a keyboard type instrument in a music environment. So you could have anywhere from 37 to 88 note keyboards there. That has a bearing on the cost, because however many units you need 4, 8, 12, or 16 of them. The other thing, and this is the current biggest problem with piano labs, is you need a master controller. For a teacher to sit there and be able to go around the room and listen to everyone individually and talk to them and listen to them back, there needs to be some kind of electronic component that does that. Originally, it was all analog solid state, and a lot of time solid state equipment and volume knobs, potentiometers, and all that kind of stuff, flip switches. And a lot of those things were put together with auto part type automobile wiring, because there were so many wires and there were already clips and things made to hold certain number of wires. So those master controllers, that's what makes a piano lab from a teacher's perspective, the ability to listen and instruct for up to 48. You could do 48 people and never having to leave your workstation. And the other thing that is apart is because most of those master controllers, they may start off with 4 or 8 units. You'll need to get an expansion board. And so there's going to be extra ports that you can plug all these. Most of those expansion ports are industry standard. They're going to require 8 connections at a time. It doesn't mean you need to buy 8 keyboards. It means you need to buy that 8 keyboard connector thing, and then however many keyboards the school or person has budgeted for, they can add to it up to 8. Every workstation also has to have a set of headphones and also a microphone. And that is a different kind of third wire kind of involved with a microphone into a pair of stereo headphones. And so that also involves maybe you want to get the same brand of headphones, microphones made from the same people that make the master controller, and preferably make sure the keyboards work as well. Every place has to have a bench. There's got to be some kind of stand, either an X stand or a furniture stand. And then last but not least, there's got to be some kind of music desk, some kind of pedal, and a few other detailed things that may go along with it like that. However, I have here listed 4 major manufacturers that come up on piano labs, and trying to find the purchase of a piano lab online. You can piece them together, but the installation is a part that has to be priced separately. You're going to need a crew to go out there and set this up. And that's where some of the expense gets involved, some of the warranty gets involved, and people are worried about a lot of things. A lot of common sense is, believe it or not, some of the hardest thing to do with a piano lab. Everyone's worried about the components getting connected and hooked up, that once it's up and working, they don't always do what I claim as finish the job completely, which is bundle up the wires, get them inside hoses, make it neat and clean. If there's going to be students in there, regardless of their age, if you're going to have a classroom that's going to have 20 and unders in there, you're going to want to make sure those wires are bundled and the place is safe for all kind of horsing around and kids fooling around in a lab. They're not just going to go in there and sit down and play. There's going to be times, especially if it's one of these small labs. Now, what have I seen as piano labs? I told you about the first one I saw, and then I've also seen sold and installed at 2 or 3 different universities, piano labs. I've pulled out old piano labs and put in new ones. Years ago, we sold complete Yamaha piano labs, and part of that involved they had one of the controllers that worked best. However, in the last 20 years, there's been no real major change in piano lab configurations from old analog equipment to new digital equipment. The problem is that a lot of these piano labs are going inside new buildings that may have been constructed and wired in the last 15 to 20 years. Certainly anything in the last 10 years is going to have a lot of wires in it where there used to not be a lot of wires in a building. Building wires for communication, digital wires and analog wires, electrical wires, telephone wires, communication wires, and then you're bringing in even more wires that work half on digital equipment and involve analog connections. So there is a generation of a lot of noise in some piano labs. And it's hard to isolate that noise from within that system. And the electricity has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of minor problems. One of the problems with piano labs is, let me take, for example, this is an obvious. When people price piano labs, they go to the known manufacturer, they go to Yamaha. Yamaha has what's called an LC4. The guts of that LC4 are manufactured by a non-musical company and put inside here as they are for most of the other ones. And that seems to be kind of an old analog problem that translates. Here's a typical setup of a teacher's unit. And then every one of the keyboards has to have a keyboard connector unit to get into the main master unit so the teacher can run a class from there. This is on Yamahas. This one here I will show you. This is a Kawai configuration. They show you their components, and I guess I didn't print out the drawing, and their expansion board. And all of them have the same kind of looking configuration. And then this one here I have from Korg. And Korg right now actually is at an advantage. They call theirs a GEC5. It's compatible with any digital audio signal. And this is the one that seems to work the best, and it works the cheapest. The other one, there is another one that works near the best, which is a Yamaha. It's not the LC4, it's an upgraded one. I'm not familiar with the model. However, I will tell you, it runs upwards of over $3,000. Roland has their entire lab set up for a teacher in 4 units, and they have been doing quite well with selling these. And this is their entire GLC, their one lab unit. It has a teacher piano, and then it has up to 8 HP 302s. I think that model's been upgraded since then. And it has a student box for each keyboard. Set up very much like Yamaha's, Kawai's, and Korg actually sells components that don't necessarily need to have Korg keyboards. A lot of these you don't necessarily need the manufacturer's keyboard, but they like to include it so much when you buy a whole thing, they will discount it. Labs can run very, very high budgeted prices. They can be very expensive. And the installation and the service and part of the warranty needs to be extended to actually make sure that you cover the wiring and the connections and the functionality of that piano lab. That can get to be a lot of, it's nowhere near as enduring as it used to be. The problems now are pretty evident up front when you first wire it up and turn it on. You can tell right away if the building is going to accommodate that type of noise. I will tell you this, online, if you're trying to go purchase I only ran into unless I didn't do a big enough search, but I'll tell you what, the one guys that put together a lot of packages for piano labs and ask for copies of the bids and all that is a different company than us. But at the same time, when you find them online, it's kind of amazing to see how expensive piano labs are. Now, is there a way around that? You bet there is. There's another piano lab I saw at a music school here in San Antonio, and it was set up for basically 8-year-olds and under. And it featured X stands. They were set up low to the ground because a bunch of little kids were playing them. And they were just PSR type Yamaha keyboards. I mean, some of them were all mixed matched, and they weren't really MIDI together. They weren't master controllered. It was a very effective class because everyone could hear everyone and they were close enough to see. Just like when you were doing anything in class, everyone's looking at everyone else's work. That's a very effective lab at a very young age. By the time those students get to a real private lab where they have headphones and one-on-one in a classroom setting with the teacher, they're going to be pretty advanced, which means another thing. Advanced music instruction is not generally always taught in a piano lab environment. Piano labs are for general music education and all-around functionality on the keyboard. If someone wants to get really, really good on it and they really take to it and they start practicing, they're going to graduate themselves out of the piano lab and into a private music room with a realer piano, either an acoustic piano or a higher upgraded digital piano. Because a lot of times what you're encountering in a piano lab should be a beginning musician because or at least a generalized information. I don't know of any extremely, advanced classes in terms of playing that's going to happen in a piano lab. They can play a lot of complicated pieces, but that's dependent upon what kind of keyboards are there. And so if you have like really expensive graduated weight keys and they're all wooden keys and like the whole lab is set up that way, sometimes there's just 2 or 3 units that are set up that way. If that's the case, you can have some really, really instructive classes and make a lot of quick advance in your skills by taking a piano class. There's a lot of energy that comes from having that many students working at the same time. And then if they allow you to unplug and play together as a group, well, then that really advances the study. But in terms of piano labs, I've seen them from just portable keyboards to like these very expensive old Wurlitzer pianos, the old Baldwin pianos, and now you can make a very expensive piano out of Clavinovas and out of Kawai Digitals. Every major manufacturer has some sort of piano lab. At the moment, there is part of a hesitation, mostly because of the control units. The control units are not really up to date on an affordable level that can involve digital wiring in analog and digital environments. In a music building, a lot of times at a university or college, there's a lot of frequencies going on, a lot of interference, and it shows up as noise, static, or low-bearing lines that just don't seem to carry a very strong signal. In terms of setting them up, it depends on the size of the lab. It can take you almost a half a day just to unbox and get things in a general area. Then if you have digital pianos with furniture kind of stands, they have to all be assembled. And you have to bring a setup crew, and it's quite extensive, and bidding them is very, very competitive. So whoever offers the least amount of functional units with the least amount of servicing and the lowest cost to install, they usually get the bids. It's very competitive. Any experience that anyone has had with piano labs, like what songs did you learn? Because I've spoken to people that took class piano sometimes 25, 30 years ago at college because they had 2 electives to fill and they thought they wanted to do something without too much homework, and if they had to, it would be fun. And that kind of fun homework really involves going by 5 or 10 minutes a day and sitting at a piano with the headphones and getting out of the lab. It's a lot like learning at the language lab. You go in there's a bunch of tape machines and headphones, and you have to check out the tapes and listen to the conversations and answer the questions. That's the same thing as a piano lab. And don't forget, it's all about communication. Music is a language that expresses a lot of things that cannot be said. And with that, please leave comments, questions on piano labs here, whatever your experiences are, first time, last time, if you're not even aware of piano labs. There isn't a lot of information available. There is, if you're looking to buy one, that'll show up a lot. But if you're looking to find the history of piano labs, the development of piano labs, and I didn't even get into talking about Fender Rhodes because Harold Rhodes had an entire class piano system that taught hundreds of thousands of veterans how music works and how to pull out a melody on a keyboard. So that's available for another topic another time. I am Ted Barsalou with Alamo Piano Galleries. I thank you so much for listening to this Piano Lab video. And if you have questions or comments, I look forward to seeing them and responding. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.